Barn on our property was built in the mid-1800s, and it's actually registered as a church. So I do have a church on my property, but we use it as a horse barn. When we moved in, there was nothing in the attic. Like, it seemed like the original owner had been in there, but the previous owners to us didn't do anything with it. So our plan was to make a main bedroom, big bathroom, and then a dressing room. It became very clear after we started messing with the attic that something was not very happy. We had a tree fall on our barn. We had our septic system back up on a holiday weekend nonetheless. Like, the house was very upset that it was being disturbed. So in the process of doing the attic, we started ripping up the floors, right? And my husband finds some lace with like a gun wrap in it, really old, like antique looking. And then he finds like a couple pieces of clothing, and we pull it down out of the attic, so we have like not very much light up there, right? And I'm like, this looks like a nightgown. Like this really looks like a nightgown. And it's very weird that it was just like wrapped up in this lace with this gun, right? And obviously we have nothing to go on based, other than assumption that stuff has been over there or under the floor for like 100 years. So as the time goes on, we start finding other things, and we start having more activity in the house, and it's almost like we disturbed something and like opened a can of worms, and then we just couldn't get it to stop. This is like a super condensed version of the story, but we basically started poking around, and I asked the neighbors we had. They were in their 90s at the time. They've since passed, but I asked them like if they knew anything about the original owners of the house, and like what happened to the wife, because I'm like, this is kind of sketch. And the original owners, apparently he was just a man and his two daughters, and allegedly the wife worked out of town, and then eventually decided to move, and they didn't really see much of her. So I'm like, oh, okay. We also found like shoe boxes, newspaper clippings, these colorful vials. We have no idea what's in them. And then we started pulling up more floors in the back of the attic before we did the addition or did the remodel. And we noticed that part of the floor was already ripped up. And it didn't seem to be purposeful in the first place. And then we found a check stuck to the bottom of the floorboard, like someone had ripped them up and was looking for it. That's what we're assuming. Again, allegedly, we don't know, we're just guessing. And it was the payout or the receipt for a life insurance policy check. And so my husband and I are just putting our theories together. Okay, so we live in this house. We have this 100-year-old gun. We have this nightgown. We have this story that the wife allegedly was never seen. We have these vials. We have no idea what's in them. And then we have some pieces of clothing. Now I consider myself to be a little bit of a horror movie buff, and I'm sitting here sifting through this information, and I'm like, okay, there's a body somewhere. There has to be a body here somewhere. So the first place we look, obviously you pull up all the floors upstairs, but then I'm like, there's a church on our property. They buried her in the church, right? That just makes sense. So we go into the barn, which was the church, rip all of the flooring out of it, dig, feet deep. It needed, the foundation needed repaired and everything anyways. And nothing. We pulled floors up in other parts of the house. Nothing. Now, in the meantime, while we're searching, we're just disturbing more shit. And it seems like whatever in our house is just getting more pissed. One day, my husband is noticing that the plaster in our dining room has a crack in it by our dining room table, and he's picking at this little crack. Mind you, the house is over 100 years old. It's gonna have, little cracks, little imperfections. It's what makes it so great. And he's picking at this wall, and I'm like, honey, don't pick at that crack in the wall, because if you do that, we're never going to get the plaster to look the same as the rest of the walls. These are 100-year-old walls. If you mess it up and we have to drywall over it or whatever, it's not going to look the same. And he's like, yeah, well, this wall never has looked the same. This wall has always looked a little, off. And he's picking at it, and he goes, there's no horsehair in this plaster. And, back in the day, apparently it was very common to put horsehair and filler in the plaster, and it kind of gave the plaster a bit of shape, I guess. Well, he's like, this plaster isn't the same as the rest of the house. And I'm like, that's weird. So then we get to looking at the outside of our house. Because now I'm like, I want to know what's back there, right? And he's like, there's a fireplace back here. And I'm like, I don't really, like, that's, why would they plaster in a fireplace? Because I know there was an oil heater back in what was my office. But, like, why would they plaster in the fireplace? We didn't think much of it, right? It wasn't a big deal. There's a masonry oven here. We're not really thinking of the dates at that point. Then as time goes on, things kind of start to amp up again. Because, like, we're asking questions, we're poking around, we're picking at the walls, apparently. And I notice we start having, like, a figure standing kind of in the entryway of our closet door in our bedroom. And I'm like, what the hell is up with that? That looks like a grown-ass man. Like, that is a big-ass shadowy figure. And I told my husband, I'm like, I don't know what the hell is up with all of that. Like, I've heard people seeing, like, the hat man or whatever. This dude has no hat. It's just a rando dude standing in, like, the closet, right? And it's a tiny closet. 100-year-old homes have teeny tiny closets. So now I want to know. Like, I'm looking for stuff. I want to know what's going on. I want to know more about the history of the house. Well, one day, I'm sitting there talking to my husband about how the house was made. And, like, the history of the house, and, like, how it was interesting that there was an oil heater in the house, because in the 20s, it would have made more sense, or when the house was built, it would have made more sense to heat the house with wood. And he looks at me, and he goes, oh my God, I wonder if she's in the fireplace. I'm like, hang on, what? He's like, I wonder if her in the wintertime. And then the ground was hard, you know? So he put her in the fireplace and plastered her into the wall. And I'm like, you got me fucked up. Again, all allegedly. Like, we're just, you know, worst case scenario. It's always what we jump to, right? Then we're researching the house a little more thoroughly, and he's looking at the floors, you know, because we have wood floors, and some of it is like old school 100-year-old wood, and some of it's newer. And we're looking where the addition went in, and he goes, you know, the bedroom closet, like where the closet is, he's like, that used to be the front door of the house. That was the front of the house. So this man that I kept seeing standing in the closet, like the doorway of our closet in our bedroom, was actually standing on his front porch. But the front porch was now part of our bedroom. So I'm like, my theory, I'm like, her, allegedly, put her body in the fireplace, allegedly, plastered it into the wall, got an oil heater to heat the house. Oh, did you just hear that? My door just opened. Did you just hear that? Did you just hear? Wait. Could you not? Nims, what are you looking at? Nims? Nims. Again, allegedly. We gotta wrap this up because now I'm getting the creeps. And then I think, because we can't find her death certificate, after a reasonable amount of time, they couldn't find her, right? She's missing, they can't find her. He collected on the insurance policy, right? But then couldn't find the check when he went to move. Like, that's my theory. Got stuck under the floorboards where he hid it. That's why he ripped up all the floors trying to find this check that was lost in our attic for the last 100 years. And then we found it when we were doing the remodel. All alleged. I mean, I'm an avid horror movie watcher. I could be blowing a molehill into a mountain. I don't know. Possible. However, this time of year, in the colder months, she goes off. Opening doors, slamming doors, pounding her feet upstairs. I don't know what happened to her, if anything did happen to her in this house, but I know that whatever it is, she's pissed about it. We live in a farmhouse that's over 100 years old, and the barn